This podcast contains adult themes, explicit language, and the kind of conversations your browser history would rather forget. Listener discretion is advised, and curiosity is highly encouraged.
Pawn for thought. Pawn for thought. Pawn for thought. Pawn for thought. I could beatbox if you want.
We are your kindly sex detectives, ready to guide you through every "what the hell did I just watch" question you have.
Matt is a mental health practitioner with over 3 decades of self-appreciation under his belt.
And B is an accredited psychosexual therapist who's seen it all, heard it all, and at this point, the algorithm is afraid of her next search.
I have a dick in my mouth right now. It's Fistive season, and today we're talking about fisting.
Yeah, I mean, the title kind of really speaks for itself, doesn't it?
It sure does. What is it? Brachiovaginal... What's the other one?
What?
Brachiovaginal.
Brachiovaginal, and I was like, what are you talking about?
It's brachiovaginal and...
the art of inserting a hand into one's vagina or anus. Either partially, all the way, or maybe even all the way up to the shoulder.
Hold on 1 second. It's in my book.
You got a book?
Okay, so it's brachiovaginal, brachioproctic, which is anal or vaginal penetration, either by hand or fist, also known as hand sex, handballing, fist fucking, extreme fingering for those of us who like a sport.
Giving a muppet. That was one of my personal favourites.
I know what I watched to study, as all good students and researchers should do. And some of it I was like, oh yeah, can get behind, literally. And others I was like, this is very busy. There's a lot happening. I feel like if it was me in this situation, I would get a little overwhelmed.
Some of the scenes that I've watched in the past do definitely feel a little bit busy at times when there's multiple hands, feet, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot going on. But I think when we talk about it in its basic form, essentially, it's really just one person and another person and a fist and a hole, in a sense.
Oh my God, what a romantic way to start.
I know, right? Just two peoples existing on a rock floating in space, inserting a hand into the other one's anus or vagina.
I'm just a boy standing in front of a girl with my fist clenched.
Dripping with lube.
Asking them to bend over.
For permission to slide it in.
It's romance. It's the 90s rom-com ready to go, you know? I can see why people do it. I can definitely understand it. Once I started looking into it a bit more, I looked a lot more at the physiological components of it, because I think that's where my initial reaction was. I was like, damn.
I feel like that's a lot of people's kind of initial reaction too when they hear about what it is or, you know, how it's done. Is kind of like, how can people do that? How can you fit something like that in?
Oh, I mean, it takes time. That's what we know. You know, it takes a bit of time. Trust, training, intimacy, connection, vulnerability, breathing, lubricant.
Lots of lubricant.
There's your list right there.
If there's one thing that is a definite necessity when it comes to this sort of play, it's lubricant.
It's the fist.
Lots of it.
Oh, yeah, no, that
Good
too.
quality. And, yeah. And you also need to have fists. Although you could do it if you, like, you know, if you're missing hands, you could still do it because you could stump them.
Oh, that's true.
Technically.
I know we talked previously around how everything has like a big, long history where it comes from. There's not a lot when it comes to fisting. Most of it is more in the homosexual variety. And it's only in the last, you know, like 30, 40, 50 years that we're really seeing anything pop up.
Yeah, I had the same kind of experience when it came to researching. There was a claim that potentially it has evolved, you know, hundreds of years ago, but there's no sort of evidence to suggest when or what was happening at that time. So I found that really kind of confusing. Like there's got to be some sort of early starting point if that's the case, right?
And the things that they're kind of saying were historical representations of it are all guesswork. The ceiling Michelangelo painted where someone can be seen fisting a sodomite but they're guessing because the fist disappears, but it doesn't really look like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of this, we're reading into it. And then there's writings by Chaucer, which talk about farting into a friar's hand and then that hand feeling inside him. But it doesn't really, there's no real proof. There's no real evidence around it.
People have been freaky for a long time. Like people have been into doing some pretty kinky, debaucherous kind of things throughout history. But, you know, I don't think it's kind of inscribed on cave walls or, you know, written on papyrus or anything like that for people to be able to kind of say, this is where it started or, you know, this is what they used for lube back in those days and things like that.
I feel like that's all dried up by now. But even things like there's arguments that Caligula, one of the Roman emperors, would have at some point, it's featured in a 1970s film that he is seen fist fucking one of the people in it. But there's no actual evidence that happened. However, Caligula's the same guy who was into fucking his horse, so I guess we could make some inferences that maybe...
He's all about getting stretched out.
Yeah. He likes what he likes.
He likes to gay.
And we can make inferences. He's got a wide variety of interests, Matthew.
Wide indeed.
Okay. So there's not a lot of history around it, is our point.
I think it's definitely more sort of modern day historically that we can start to put to pieces together as to when it became more popular and who was into it and how it sort of evolved from there. It seems more prevalent in the queer community, especially amongst gay men from the 60s onwards, I think was kind of where I found the most information around the popularity and how people were engaging in clubs and stuff like that, especially in places like San Francisco, where they're pioneering a lot of those things back in the day.
And there was a club called the Handball Express. Literally a fisting club.
And the Catacombs, I believe, was another one that was one of the original fisting clubs back then.
Yeah, the earliest verified imagery they have is from the 1700s, but it's not properly verified. And there's woodcut vaginal fisting toys from the 18th century in Europe. But this is your whole history. This is everything.
I did read that too about the early dildos that grew in girth. That is probably a place where people realized that there were different sensations that came from increasing the width and depth of play, both vaginally and anally. Then maybe that's where things evolved to putting the old fists in.
Putting the old fists in.
The thing I loved about researching this was when they talked about, you know, the hand gesture that people make when they start inserting, and it's called the silent duck. because it's literally like, you know, when you used to make shadow puppets on the walls and it literally looks like a duck, but you're not quacking. I mean, if you're that way inclined and you want to do some quacking once you get in there, go nuts. But to start off with, it's just sort of like that duck shape with your hand and then working your way in.
So for anyone who wants to join in the activity, you want to make the duck beak and then kind of squeeze your top fingers around your thumb.
Really try and compress your fingers together to make them as narrow as you possibly can. And then just give a little,
this is the duck beak.
Quack, quack.
Yeah, that's the important part, making sure that you bring humour to the situation.
Yeah, we're all about humour and education. If you can't have a laugh while you're doing it, you know, why do it?
And I mean, clearly people who wrote research about this in the last few decades have also had a bit of a laugh about it, which I really appreciate when researchers use puns in their research and their titles. So there's a book by Deborah Addington called The Fine Art of Vaginal Fisting, A Hand in the Bush.
Yes, I saw that one. That was gold.
We don't have a lot of information either about the number of people that watch fisting in pornography. There's not a lot of statistics. It is really low on the list, and that's probably why there's not a lot of statistics.
I found that surprising, to be honest, because I thought that more people were interested in that kind of content. I thought that it would be, you know, quite a high prevalence of people that are watching that material. But also I think there's more like independent creators now too who are creating that kind of content that probably isn't being captured in that data as well.
I mean, the way that a lot of the statistics work is it's based on thematics, from what I can gather. So we've got, you know, step siblings, MILF, big tits, big ass, all that sort of stuff. And it sounds as though the word fisting might be lost amongst some of the other demographic information, if you want to put it in a really boring way.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. It's definitely something that you can use to beef up a category,
Big titted goth takes big fist.
Yeah, big titty goth girlfriend takes double fist in anus.
Most people are going to be like, oh yeah, big titted. That's going to be in our
and then, hang on a second. What's this? I've never considered this content before. Why am I erect?
Very often. Why am I erect?
Why not?
Mostly because when I look down, that's actually not something that's visible for me.
That makes sense. I appreciate your honesty.
Thank you. When it comes to the actual barriers that a lot of people have around it, when I think there's an initial response for some people that it's like, ugh, when you think about fisting. I don't know what your interactions with people have been like, but when I've casually brought it up in conversation, as you do, family barbecue style, it's very much like a very physiological, reactive, like,
yeah, it's quite visceral, isn't it? You can almost feel it when people react to, the question of, hey, you ever tried fisting, or, is it something that you're into?
Or do you have questions about it?
We ask these kind of questions to people all the time because that's just who we are. But it's fun to see people's reactions sometimes. But yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's one of those things that people are either, pretty happy to admit that they're into. And I think that comes down to communities of people who are into these fetishes and kinks. That's probably more likely where you're going to find people that are into that kind of stuff compared to just the regular Joe Blow on the streets, or your friends and maybe not family. Don't ask them.
Don't tell me how to speak to my parents.
Conversations amongst friends. Yeah, maybe it's something that they've tried, once or twice in their life, but maybe it's not something that they're doing on a regular basis as some other people are.
So when you looked through the research around fisting, what were the reasons that you found people did it?
There's quite a few, and I think it came down to a mix of mental, emotional, and physical reasoning. So for a lot of people, the act of fisting itself, pushing the boundaries when it comes to insertion, width, depth, and the sensations that people got from that was the main driver for a lot of people. And then for a lot of other people, it was more about the taboo of putting something inside the body that maybe normally wouldn't go inside the body. And then also perseverance and feeling of achieving something when they did actually finally get a fist in. It sometimes takes a lot of training for people to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, I can see that. Jared H. Martin has written a bunch of papers about fist fucking. It seems to be a special interest subject, and we love that for people. We do. And he's written qualitative research. So that's where he interviews people about a specific sexual act that they do and then codes the data. One of his was looking at why people do fist fucking, and he looked at 28 gay men in 2023 and then 32 gay men in 2024. So these are like recent. And there was intimacy, trust, and vulnerability. The communication, and they framed it as like the most intimate form of lovemaking that you could possibly have. Then there was sexual subjectivity and identity, and that is how they make meaning of themselves and form an identity for themselves. So there was like the kinkster, the explorer, the athlete, the expert, the lover, and then the community member. So the idea is it's embedded in a broader self-concept and helps them feel like they're part of a wider community. And then there's gender and power. So similar to what you just said, this idea that it reiterates power dynamics, role play within the relationship. And then non-normative desire trends. So again, similar to what you're saying, there's an appetite for non-normative sexual behaviors, which might not be just fisting. It could be asphyxiation or some more types of extreme sexual play. And then risk and physical sensation. So again, stretching and thrill seeking, not just the emotional and identity factors, but they have said that there's a higher risk of injury for people who follow that type of play.
Interesting.
Right?
What's the sort of reasoning behind that?
When we're talking about fisting, the amount of time that you should be training for fisting is quite long. They reckon between a year and a year and a half of regular training using fingers and then dilators and,
butt
moving
plugs,
up the chain.
bigger dildos, that sort of stuff.
There's some groups of people who don't do the training part of this and end up doing what is called fist punching.
Literally trying to punch someone in the anus or vagina.
Mm-hmm.
With a closed fist.
Just kind of forcing it in there.
Not the silent duck, just the closed fist.
Or punching once they're actually worked up to that point where they can fist fuck and they can get the full fist in, they start they can move into like a punching phase, and it can cause a lot of rectal tears and fecal incontinence, urinary incontinence, pelvic floor issues, and so forth. So it depends how the person makes sense of their identity around this particular act. But what I thought was interesting was that fisting appeared to be something that was really linked with how the person identified themselves in some cases, like as somebody who can do this act, like it was achieved.
And my understanding, just from listening to other podcasts where people who have been engaging in fisting for a long time talk about the people who think that they can just get straight into it and not really go through proper training and proper stretching and maybe engaging with people who are not also preparing in the right ways, and somebody who's being caring and guiding and nurturing and listening to the other person's body and that sort of stuff as well.
That was actually one of the things that I actually really enjoyed about reading through some of the research on this and just general information and people's stories, was that for the most part, we're talking about an act that takes a long time. It requires you to really get to know your body and to pay attention to it, but also to have an incredible amount of trust with your partner or the person that you're doing this with, or multiple people if you need extra hands for the job.
You're an adventurer.
But it was very much about, taking your time, having the intimacy and being vulnerable and having a lot of trust, which I don't know that I was aware of before this. And I think I was kind of like, that's really sweet.
When you think about it, it is quite an extreme act. It's an extreme kink, fetish, thing to do with somebody else. So hearing somebody's into fisting, you're kind of like, oh, wow, that's pretty. And if you're not somebody who's understanding or educated around what that might look like, you could be automatically having that visceral reaction of, oh my God, that would be fucking wild. You're not really considering all of the practice and the stretching and the guidance and the connection and all that sort of stuff that goes into it beforehand. You're not just jumping on a fist one day. You're starting out somewhere small and working your way up over time. Like, you can compare it to going to the gym. The more you work out, the more those muscles retain muscle memory and you start to build the muscle, then it gets easier and you get more used to it. And what felt really hard in the beginning now is not so difficult after all, and you can do it on a regular basis. And it's kind of the same with fisting. I think it's definitely one of those things where it is important to not let your ego or ambition get in the way of listening to your body and what you can withstand comfortably and safely, because there are those risks involved. Like, it's important to start out with maybe even just 1 or 2 fingers. Once you're used to that, it might be 1 or 2 more fingers, and then you might start looking at anal training butt plug sets where it starts off small and gradually incrementally increases in width and depth, etc. That's something you can do over time. It's something that you can work into, a regular sex life with your partner or by yourself. But the key is definitely listening to your body, not trying to push too fast, and ensuring that you use lots of lube, because lube is your best friend. If you don't have lube, you're going to have a bad time. That should go on a t-shirt. There is a lot of content creators that will share their recommendations, but if you search for what's the best fisting lube, there's all kinds of different suggestions. Like, a lot of people back in the day used to say getting the Vaso out and stuff like that. Yeah, so anything that's, quite gluggy and viscous and isn't going to dry out, I think is probably the ideal kind of lube for engaging in this kind of play.
And the reason we're talking about the fact that this takes so much time, and it should take time, is because you are stretching body parts that, they're designed to be stretched, first of all, and they are, and it's fine. But if you approach it with too much gusto or aggression, you are going to harm yourself. There's a lot of research around pelvic floor conditions, long-term fecal incontinence, urinary incontinence. There's a lot of research around these things when people have rushed forward instead of taking the time and listening to their bodies. When we talk about vaginal fisting, babies come out of there. We know that it can stretch like that. We know that it can go back to the same size. It's not an issue. However, when you've birthed a child, you risk tearing, you risk perforation of that part of your body. So for vaginal fisting to be enjoyable, it needs to be done slowly as well. And with anal fisting, you've got your rectum and your sphincter. And they're two different parts of the anus, people. The sphincter is the hole, and the rectum is the part of your body that holds the poo. All right, so the rectum part can stretch. Once the fist is inside, you've got enough space. However, you do not want to cause micro tearing, micro bleeding in the sphincter part. So that is where this training comes in. We don't want to stretch anything too wide, too fast, because otherwise you can have a prolapse, which is not a medical miracle and is really, really difficult to care for. So while these body parts are designed to stretch, the reason we take it slow is because what's a good analogy?
If you go too hard, too fast, you end up in the ER.
Yep. There's literary writing on fisting presentations by Henry James and Melville. I thought was really interesting. And it just says, for these writers, in the end, love is key to this practice in which bodies adjust themselves on their own in their ultimate and infinite harmony, turning a supposedly violent practice, often categorized as sadomasochistic, into an act of love. That's cute.
It is actually quite nice.
Ultimately, fisting can be presented as a victory of civilization over nature, of pleasure over violence, of mind over body, and ultimately of the body over itself. Man, people be writing about it.
There really is a kind of beauty in it, though. What people see as being something that is quite grotesque or violent or extreme can also be quite the opposite. Like, this can be something that is actually therapeutic in a sense for some people. That sense of connection and vulnerability and having somebody guide them or mentor them and things like that, which I think is quite nice.
Most of the stories that I found were about people talking either about the way that they were able to stretch their body and how nice that felt for them, or it was around the intimacy that they felt with their partner and the connection and the fact that they were kind of working towards a shared goal. And
I love that.
Much like, finishing the patio, pretty much. Obviously there's elements of this as part of my sexual identity as well. These are the things my body can achieve, which reiterates that your body is able to do so much. We don't typically stretch to the capacity that we could, but obviously there's a community that do. There's a lot of talk about it being high risk, high danger, and there have been fatalities from fisting as a practice. However, the important thing to note is that all of the fatalities that I could find referenced have occurred from sexual violence. So not the way that we're talking about fisting. We are discussing this as a long-term, slowly introduced exercise that you do with your body in a way either to get to know it better or to have that connection with your partner or yourself.
I think the other thing to talk about too is maybe some of the misconceptions about, like, oh man, how can anyone go back to having regular sex after that? Like, isn't it just like a loose pussy or ass now because it's been stretched out beyond belief type thing? I mean, people have babies all the time, and that stretches the absolute bejesus out of the vagina, and it still goes back to being the way that it used to be.
And remembering that your sexual practices are variable. You do other shit. You're not just like, I'm going to have a blowjob today, and every single day of my life, that's the only thing I'm doing. How could I possibly do anything else? You typically do lots of different sex acts, and this just happens to be one of them. It doesn't become the only thing that you do.
And I mean, if you do it all the time, power to you. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions around people who are into this kind of play too. Like, you've got to be part of a BDSM community or a leather community, or rather than it's something that literally anybody can engage in. But I think it's about being able to overcome shame or insecurity around your body.
So most of the research is around the sensation, the stretch. How far can I push my body? What is my body capable of? Then also you've got the power play, the dominance or submission that happens between two people, in addition to that sense of self-accomplishment. So even though no one else knows that this is what I can do, I know that this is what I can do. And with or without a partner, that feels empowering.
Yeah. So just remember when you're out in the community that there are people walking around you that might be able to fit a fist or two into their anus or vagina. And don't shame those people.
They've got a plug in there right now and they're preparing for later.
Do we or do we not? Who knows?
We like to talk about how you can do this yourself. If you so choose, where are you going to get your information? Yes, porn is one of those places where you can go and have a look at how it's done. But remember that porn is acting. It's like watching Indiana Jones to be an archaeologist.
It's not an accurate representation of a life. Okay, people, you're not seeing the prep work that went into it.
Okay, so number one, recognize that this is going to take time. This is not I'm just going to do this and then next week I'll be able to fit a whole fist in. This is I'm going to commit some time to this. I'm going to commit some energy. I'm going to get dilators. I'm going to continue using them until there's some stretch in there. I'm going to buy bulk in my lube. And then I'm going to buy bulk lube again. Maybe even a third time just to make sure I've got enough.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably get a subscription to a lube service.
Time to buy shares.
Get that shit delivered to your door every month because you're going to need it.
Rings, jewelry off the hands, no bracelets, cut your fingernails, wash your hands, learn how to douche. You want to put a towel down? This is going to be messy, even if it's got no fecal matter, even if you are pristine up there. You are shinier than a clean window. We could see right through you. You are going to have lube, like we said, copious amounts of lube. Yeah. I mean, better off just getting a kiddie pool and heading on in there. It's probably the easiest way to do this. But otherwise, towel down.
Yeah, I've heard puppy pads are really good for this kind of stuff too, putting them down underneath. No matter how much you clean out, there is a chance that you're going to encounter some sort of mess, some sort of fecal matter, and that's a risk that you take in any sort of anal play. So if that's not for you, then maybe that's not for you.
While we're on the subject of that, under no circumstances do you start doing anything to the vagina, then move to the asshole and then back. Are we clear?
Clear.
That's just moving some bacteria around that we definitely don't need. You clean your hands in between, you clean your stuff in between, you give it a wipe over.
No double dipping.
No double dipping.
If it's something that you're kind of new to, then probably best not to try this when you're on any sort of substances or using muscle relaxers. It gives you a false sense of security and doesn't really allow you to fully connect with your body in the way that you would if you weren't under the influence of something.
I think that's a really fair point. The idea here, and we've said it a few times, is that you need to be able to be attuned with your body or read what's happening. And if you're not sober, if you've got anything in your system that's going to mess around with that and your ability to understand where your limits are, then you risk some pretty serious medical problems. We also want to flag here that while this is a very generalist way of explaining what can happen, all bodies are different. If you're getting into this and you're perimenopausal or menopausal and you're experiencing some level of vaginal atrophy, so where you get the dryness, you can actually risk vaginal tissue rupture if you push this too quickly and too aggressively without effective training and lube. So being a bit more mindful around what your body is capable of. A lot of research indicates it'd be a good idea to probably have a check with your pelvic floor physio if you've got one beforehand, maybe during, just to check what you're doing, making sure you're not hurting yourself. Again, we're talking to all bodies, all ages at this point. So if there's anything in there that could be a risk, and this is seriously something that you want to give a go and power to you, then make sure you've covered your bases.
Yeah, and as always, ensure that anything you do is consensual, safe, and that you're actually enjoying it. Have some boundaries, have some safe words in place so that if you do reach a point where you do feel uncomfortable or you need to stop, make sure that that is clear to the other person that you might be engaging with.
We talked about a really good way of training is going to be using things like plugs and dilators. Over time, you may find that you want to hold them in place and go about your day while you're wearing it, making sure that you're wearing a G-string or underwear that's going to hold it in. Otherwise, you can get bondage tape that's going to hold any toy with a flare base inside you.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a good way to start training too for some people, is just wearing a plug, starting off small, whether it's a couple of minutes, and then increasing that time incrementally as you go, because then you kind of get used to relaxing and tightening the muscles in your sphincter.
So with the fisting itself, we're going slow. Remember that? We've talked about the fingers, we've talked about the dilators. Let's say you're at the point where you're going to put a little bit more in and you've decided to quack, quack, start with the duck.
Silent ducket.
That duck is silent.
The duck can't talk because it can't open its fucking beak.
Its fucking beak is shut. It's slammed shut. Your fingers are slammed shut. You've gotten past... Now, you remember that your fingers are going to be the smallest part, and then we're going to hit the knuckles. And then once we've got the knuckles over that ridge, we're going to use probably the anus as the example here. It's going to go and shrink back around to accommodate your wrist, not your knuckles. It doesn't stay that wide just because you've put something in there. But you do not want to be moving your hand. So once it's in there, you are going to keep that hand nice and still for a little bit and allow the person that you've just shoved a whole body part into to have a breath.
They're going to acclimatize people.
Because otherwise it's going to be too much sensation. This is going to be an overwhelming experience for that person. If you are going to start moving and they're okay, they've become comfortable with it, we're limiting movements to small rotations. Just rotations of the wrist or the hand, but very, very slight and only slow, shallow thrust. So you are not going to be moving that wrist at all. Like, think about the smallest movement you could be making. That's the one you're making. One of the extra tips here is that when you finish, the lube that's left in the anus might be tinged pink. It's not uncommon. So they can rupture capillaries, and this is normal. However, if it's a bright red color and you are having a bit of blood, there's some concern there. And we want to make sure that you're resting. If it doesn't stop bleeding, please see a doctor. Same thing's going to go for vaginal fisting, people. If there's any level of blood, if there's anything that looks like it's not okay, please see a medical professional. Make sure that you're having a bath, that you're putting some cream on it. I'm not even going any further. I don't think we need to go any further.
This is a beginner
course. At this point, you don't need us anymore.
If you're at that point, then you know what? Good on you. Give yourself a pat on the back while you're here.
Wear with the other hand, though. Don't pull out too quickly.
Get your partner to give you a pat on the back. Maybe little forehead kisses and tell you're a good boy, girl, they, them.
What did you find for post-nut peer support?
I have the best comment. I was jerking to my penis while watching this. Then I remember I lost both my arms in an accident. Then I asked myself this scary question. Who is jerking on my penis?
It's so dumb. So dumb.
That's why I loved it.
I watched one where a woman was getting one vaginal fist and then double anal fist. And I found it overwhelming. I thought that's a lot of work. But the comments were amazing. Jesus is King, our Lord and Saviour. Turn to him before it's too late. And then someone had written underneath it, horny wet slut had written, but I need to come first.
But also, like, what are you doing on those videos posting that shit? Like, there's a reason you're there.
Yeah, I know. And so there was another one. Weird-ass outlets on that wall. What a talented woman. This is better than cleaning or cooking.
Were these on fisting videos?
Yeah, this is the same fisting video.
I literally can't find any funny ones. They're all like, oh man, I'd love to be fisted by that guy.
No, okay, so there was heaps like that, but this one was like, this poor girl, and then the comment underneath it was this is no place for sympathy. And then someone had written, but she's someone's daughter.
Aren't we all?
I loved it before I came to a realization, what the fuck, not my proudest nut. And then there was one that was like, may this love never find me.
That's funny.
And then nasty, I'm going vegan, guys.
That's wild.
However, the ones that I watched where it was just one woman with her partner getting vaginally fisted, people were just all over it. They were like, I love this, wish that was me, she's taking it so well, what a good girl, what a good guy. It's very positive.
Man, sometimes I go to Pornhub comments just to feel good, because a sense of community sometimes and just the celebration is sometimes just so heartwarming, And some people make it look easy, and it's not.
Actually, yeah, this woman that I watched made it look like it was not a problem.
People look at that and think that, she's got a loose vagina or something, but the reality is she's been training. She knows what she's doing.
That woman has been doing it for a long time, which, again, I wouldn't have known before researching it. I probably would have watched that and been like, Jesus Christ.
Like, wow, how do these freaks of nature do that?
Not me.
You could do an Attenborough voice to it. That'd be mad.
Can you do it now?
I can try. Here we have the avid fister. You can tell that he has been engaging in training because the fist just slides effortlessly into his anus. Multiple types of lube have been used, but he has no threshold. It is just sliding right in there, and you can see by the look on his face that he's loving it. Outstanding. How's that? Is that good?
I would watch the shit out of that Attenborough documentary.
That's some funny stuff. Anyway.
So this was the end of our first season. This is our episode wrap, episode 6 of Porn for Thought.
We really hope that you guys have enjoyed it, learned something new, and maybe even tried something new.
Yeah, hopefully you did that with extra lube.
Stay safe over the holidays. Merry Fistmas. And have a happy lube year. Fist in your bumhole, you like, yes?